Hello, Bill.
How are you? Happy New
Good.
Year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
Mr. Johnson. We're awaiting the cue.
Very good. Hey, Bill, you can begin the meeting at any time. I was going to suggest after you call the roll that you immediately recognize Ron. He does have a little bit of a tight out. We can go right to him, and then we can take up the other items on the agenda, including public comment and consent agenda, if that's good with you.
I think I'll hold Ron till the end and make him hang around. No, that's fine.
All right, you may proceed whenever you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee to order for January 22. If we would call the roll, I would appreciate it at this time.
Can everyone hear me?
Slightly, speak up a little more.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
That's better.
Okay, Bob Henyon. Bill Roberts,
Here.
Bob Widmer,
Present.
Lynn Gruber White, Josh Frank, Richard Bedford, Richard Balcom, Corinne Tucker, Travis Norton, Leonardo Deseritz, Bill Johnson,
Here.
Rick Richmond, Rob Serku, David Goodwin, Karen Mullins,
Here.
Karen Schwartz, Sarah Calhoun. Okay, so that completes the roll call. I do not believe we have a quorum.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Unless the committee objects, we will ask Ron Pierce to give us the legislative report early in the agenda, and then we'll come back to our public comment. Ron, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to give you all a quick update. And thanks for working with my schedule. I'm up in Tallahassee, and I have a 1:45 with a senator this afternoon about an issue that just came up. So this is a really quick update session from a timeline standpoint. Happy New Year to everybody. Session kicked off yesterday, so we're in day 2 of day 60 in Tallahassee. Not a lot happened during committee week, so you're seeing a whole lot happen this week and next week. So you see a lot of agendas, a lot of bills that are moving. From a TBARTA perspective, the only things, there's really 2 things we are working on behalf of TBARTA in Tallahassee this year. Number one is Senator Brandis has once again filed a bill, Senate Bill 426, that would repeal the agency. Obviously, we have not taken a formal position on that, but we're educating members to make sure they understand and really, I think, have a full grasp of the importance of having a regional transit authority in their backyard. There is no House sponsor. It doesn't mean that the bill is necessarily dead, but usually when a bill does not have a House sponsor, many of the bills do not move. We are carefully watching, though, just because a bill doesn't end up having a companion. It obviously means some of that language can end up in a large transportation bill and is moving late in session. So we're monitoring that. I will tell you, we do have strong support in the Florida Senate for TBARTA, particularly with President Wilton Simpson. He's a big supporter, not only of keeping the agency and making sure that we're relevant moving forward, but also from a funding standpoint as well. And that's the second issue that we're working on your behalf is, one of the things that when the legislature created TBARTA, one of the things that they did not do was create a dedicated funding source. And so unfortunately, because of that, we're constantly having to go to Tallahassee and look for funding, either for operations or for projects. And so, last year we had $1.5 million in the budget. Unfortunately, we were one of the projects that was vetoed by the governor's office. President Simpson was the one that really helped us get in the budget. We expect that to once again occur this year. Last year we asked for 1.5 million. This year we're asking for 750,000. Some of you would ask, well, why are we asking for less? One of the things that the board's done over the last couple of years is downsize the operations it would take to operate TBARTA. And because of that, we're asking for less dollars in Tallahassee. And so what we're trying to do is ask for the 750 and try to tie it from a recurring standpoint where if we can get matching funds. One of the things we're doing a little bit differently that David and Chris and others are working on with the board is making sure that today, what we typically have done we've gone out to local governments and say, look, if you're a part of TBARTA, based upon this, formula, can you give us X to help from an operating standpoint? That's typically done on an annual basis. We show up, we ask for the dollars, we don't have any longer commitment than that. One of the things that, David's been having meetings with a lot of the local governments is that, can we come up with a 3-year commitment as a part of an interlocal agreement, which I think is really, really smart, by the way. We've also asked the 2 cities, the city of Tampa and St. Petersburg, to also be a part of that and also give, which would create about another $100,000 or so from an operating standpoint. So one of the things we want to do is with the legislatures work on maybe some language that would allow us to be eligible up to matching dollars for up to $750,000 each year. On any local dollars, we get up to $750,000. So that language is a work in progress. We met the Senate President on Monday about some of the funding priorities that we're working on here at RSA Consulting. And obviously TBARTA is in our top 3. And that was something that we really talked to him about. And it's something that I think he wants to be helpful on and that the Senate wants to be helpful on. So I think we feel confident we'll be able to get the dollars again, and we'll work with the governor's office on making sure those dollars are protected and not vetoed moving forward. So from a timeline standpoint, again, session just started yesterday. It's scheduled to run through March 11th. From a budget standpoint, the House and Senate will start releasing their initial budgets probably week 3 or 4, which is about 3 weeks from now. They'll pass out the respective budgets week 5 or 6, sessions 9 weeks long. And then obviously they'll be different going to conference. We'll know where we are from a budget standpoint, probably in early March. And then once the session's done on March the 11th, we'll have to work with some of our community leaders and some of our elected leaders to ensure that the governor doesn't veto the project this year. The one good thing about Tallahassee this year is there is a ton of non-recurring revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, there's almost $8 billion between federal dollars and state non-recurring that has to be spent. I think you'll see a record number of member projects get in the budget this year. And again, I think we feel confident, like we've done the last couple of years. I think we'll be able to get the dollars in and hopefully be able to protect it from the governor's veto. So, Bill, I'll stop there, see if you or any board members have any questions.
Thank you, Ron. One quick question I have is, do we have bill sponsors for the appropriations for the $750,000?
We do. Jackie Toledo on the House side and Danny Burgess on the Senate side. So it's
Okay.
Representative Jackie Toledo and against Senator Danny Burgess.
Okay, questions from the committee? Anyone in the room? Let the record show Bob Hinion has joined us. Bob, welcome. Good to have you. Ron, I see no questions. I appreciate that update. And obviously we wish you the best for the session. We'll look forward to hearing from you next month, midway through the session.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good afternoon. Thanks again for working with my schedule. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron. All right. Let's move back on the agenda to the portion of public comment. Is there any public comment? Anyone signed up?
We do have a written public comment, but first I'll ask Brian or Wayne, are you aware of any in-person public comment?
I am not aware of anyone who is here in person to comment. Bill, has anyone shown up? Since I'm not in the same room as you are, has anyone come into the room that wants to make an in-person comment?
No one here has indicated a desire to make public comment.
Very good. If that, and then if you're okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll read into the record an emailed public comment if you're ready for that.
Go ahead.
This is from Andrew Morris. The recently enacted Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is creating new grant funding opportunities to assist with expanding Amtrak service and private passenger rail projects like Brightline. The Tampa Bay metro area currently lacks reliable and frequent intercity passenger rail service to other major metro areas in Florida. The lack of frequent and reliable intercity passenger rail service negatively impacts the ridership of existing local and regional transit services and makes proposed local and regional transit projects less attractive to fund. Reliable and frequent intercity passenger rail service in the Tampa Bay metro area would serve as the foundation for building a stronger multimodal transportation system. Existing local and regional transit services would benefit from the improved connectivity, leading to higher ridership and revenue. Proposed local and regional transit projects would be more attractive to fund because they would have a higher ridership potential from the connections with frequent and reliable intercity passenger rail service. The infrastructure improvements required for intercity passenger rail would also make implementing regional rail in the Tampa Bay metro area much more affordable, since the necessary infrastructure to support passenger rail would already be there. Amtrak, Brightline, the Federal Railroad Administration, and FDOT all need to be directly involved with TBARTA's CSX corridor study. Since local funding is limited, focusing on attracting state, federal, and private funding should be prioritized. Federal grants are focused more on intercity passenger rail service currently compared to regional rail. Out of the existing CSX corridors in the Tampa Bay metro area, the Clearwater subdivision between downtown Tampa, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg has the strongest potential for intercity passenger rail service since it connects to major population centers, tourist entertainment destinations, and has minimal freight rail traffic on it. Making sure Amtrak and Brightline connect downtown Tampa, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg with the rest of Florida should be a primary goal with the study. Regional rail throughout the rest of the Tampa Bay metro area could be phased in after Amtrak and Brightline are connected to downtown Tampa, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg. We need to maximize this opportunity with the CSX corridor study to implement frequent and reliable intercity passenger rail service to the region and create the foundation to support a stronger multimodal transportation system for the Tampa Bay metro area. Again, that was submitted by Andrew Morris.
Is there an address for this gentleman?
No, but we have, I only have his email address, which is amorrisrollins@gmail.com.
All right. Seeing no more people wishing to speak, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. We have a consent agenda item, which is the November meeting minutes. We do not have a quorum, so we can't actually vote on those. But for the record, does anyone have any additions or corrections they would like to make and have suggested entered into the record?
Only a small one, Mr. Chairman, but my last name doesn't have an H in it.
I noticed that. So, yeah, well, please correct the spelling on Mr. Johnson's name. I would like to ask that the minutes also reflect that at the last meeting, there was a quorum present, and I'd like that to be specifically noted within the minutes since we took a number of actions. Otherwise, I have no other comments on them.
Is there, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is there a standard of noting the people, the board members that were not present?
I don't know that we have recorded in the minutes those members who were not present in the past. I'd certainly be open to that suggestion, however, especially having looked at our attendance report.
I would also like that to be public knowledge of those representatives that are not in attendance, that it be published who is not in attendance.
I seem to recall that previous minutes did have two lists, those that were there and those that weren't.
Yeah.
And with the caveat or whatever that excused. I agree.
Okay. I have no objection to that. Mr. Johnson, do you have any objection to noting whether an absence is excused or not?
Oh, I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. Seeing no objection from the other side of the committee.
It's a pretty standard operating procedure.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Just a question. I don't know, maybe Lorraine knows the answer to this because this will be on her to note. Certainly, we can make a list of who's in attendance and who's not, but what you made mention of an excused absence as opposed to a not excused absence. And what is who makes that determination? Is there a criteria for that?
Well, I was afraid you'd ask that question. At the very least, I think an excused absence would be one where the committee member notified us in advance of their intended absence and stated a reason. There may be other criteria, but that would be the ground level in my mind.
Minimum.
If I could follow up on that, I will tell you one of our challenges has been getting confirmation. I mean, those of you who are here today and a fair number who aren't did respond, but I think we have a handful who we did not get responses for. And those who did not attend for the most part told us I will not be able to attend, did not provide a reason. So should we be asking for a reason then, or is it sufficient just to note that they're not in attendance?
I would suggest that we first notify them of this intended policy and ask them if they're wishing to have an excused absence to provide a reason for the absence. Those with no explanations will be absent without excuses.
And Maureen, is that sufficient for you or understandable?
Does that sound reasonable?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that I had an absence a few months back that I had actually responded and said I would be in attendance, but we had a family emergency arise and I immediately emailed and notified the TBARTA staff that a family emergency had arisen.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess my request is two parts: to notify the committee members in the next regular notice, whenever that goes out, that we're going to be seeking excused and unexcused absences, and if they are not in attendance, please provide a reason for the absence in order to be excused.
Very good. And Maureen is nodding too, so I believe she concurs. Thank you.
Okay, good. And let me, while we're on that topic, let me ask if we are ready to have a new member from the city of Tampa join us, or are you waiting board approval? Does the staff know the status of our new member who is here?
I defer to Brian. I don't know if Brian has heard anything on that. I have not heard anything. I've heard that there was somebody coming, but I've not gotten any other information.
We did, but
Stand up.
Brandy, do you mind telling us your status? We're anxious to have you on the committee.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
Brandy Nicholas, I'm the city of Tampa's appointed CAC member. I was in attendance in the November TBARTA board meeting. However, there was not a quorum, so I don't know if I'm officially on the committee. So I didn't think about asking until late today, and I just figured I'd just show up. So
Well, welcome.
Well, I think in November we did have a quorum though.
Not here, the TBARTA board, the actual
Oh,
board.
okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Brian, do you know?
yeah, she kind of stole my thunder. I was just going to say we did not. This was on the agenda at the last board meeting, but as already mentioned, we did not have an agenda at the board meeting, so she could not be officially approved as a new CAC member.
Okay, so that appointment does require TBARTA board approval.
Correct.
Okay. We'll try again, Brandy. But thank you for coming today. We appreciate it.
of course.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He was
Okay.
not absent.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If the rest of the board would concur, I would suggest that she be allowed to participate in the discussion today, since we're not.
I'm more than happy to ask her to participate in the discussion anytime she wants. She is an appointee elect, so to speak, and pending board approval, I would welcome your participation anytime, Brandy. Okay,
Definitely.
Yep.
good suggestion, Bill. Thank you.
Since we can't vote anyhow, He's equal with the rest of us.
It's your fault.
Right.
Okay.
The only problem is you have to talk over these guys. That's the only, yeah.
Too many Bobs and Bills.
And while we're talking about well, let me move on to the next agenda item, which is item 5B, which is the membership attendance report. Brian, did you want to make any comments as part of this report?
No, I really was providing it. I was going to provide it without commentary. This was information that the committee requested. So basically I went back and I pulled the meeting minutes from approximately the past year, from October 2020 to November 2021. You see it documented there. The attendance is actually, it was better than what I thought it was. But beyond that, no, I didn't have any comment. This is for you, the committee, to do what you want with it. From a staff perspective, we do not have the authority to take action against any committee member for lack of attendance. So this table here, it's really for your information and for your discussion.
Okay. Well, my review of that report, which I appreciate you providing, and we did request it, is that there are 3 members of the committee who have now made a majority of the meetings. I think Corinne Tucker may have changed jobs, and I don't know if she is still an appointee of Manatee County. I'd like to ask if someone on the staff could check into that for us.
We can do that, Mr. Speaker. My understanding, I think I spoke to her briefly when she moved, I think, to the Sarasota Manatee MPO, was that she planned to continue, but I also don't know if, the new job may have requirements that keep her from attending, but I'll check in.
Okay, that would be good. And then unless the members of the committee object, I would like to also suggest we check into the status of 2 other members who have had difficulty making meetings, the appointee from Hart and the appointee from the Pasco MPO. At least confirm their desire in continuing on the committee. I think would be appropriate. Yeah, Bob, hey,
This is especially important than like tonight, or today we're having a problem with establishing a quorum.
Yes.
We really have to pursue all these issues and make sure we get everyone here that we possibly can. If somebody is not going to be participating, that a replacement be named. We see that as long as we see it with the board.
Yeah. And we do have a few alternates who are named. So maybe we seek alternates for some of these positions where people have had difficulty getting to the meetings. So, I'm not sure, Brian, if that falls to you or whom, but I'd like to check into those 3 questions. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a question I'd like to ask Chris. Of those that told you they were not coming, was COVID the primary excuse?
Most don't give an excuse, but I think we had 1 person who said they were isolating, 1, maybe 2. But most people merely said, I will not be able to attend, or something similar.
Thank you.
May I
Okay.
make a
Yes.
point,
Yeah,
Phil,
Kara,
real
go
quick?
ahead.
As Bob brought up the COVID concerns and the prior meeting to this 24 hours ago, there was an exposure here at PSTA. I would have liked to have been privy to that information before I showed up to this dais.
I would also.
I am autoimmune deficient. The counts are extremely high, and this has put me at a high risk. I know PSTA is gone above and beyond the protocol to make us safe here in this room. However, I feel that this information should have been made available to us before we walked into the door. Thank you.
I concur with that. I would hope that this entire room had been disinfected.
Yeah.
You know, with wipes and sprays and whatever.
Yeah, good
And I
point.
understand that the room has been disinfected, but by the same token, I am in complete agreement with you.
Yeah.
I was even checking my email at my last board meeting that I was there, and I came to hear from that because we had seen emails that a lot of people hadn't responded. Were we still meeting today? So
Right.
on and so forth. It would have been nice to have communication.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the only thing I will add to that is that the information on the COVID exposure developed very recently, within, I would say, an hour of the meeting's start time. So as of this morning, even through this morning, we're not aware of that. So it was a relatively quick development.
Fair enough.
The point is fairly noted. Absolutely. We believe in absolutely this type of information. We don't want to hold this back and communicate this as we can.
No, I'm glad you made that point, but I think to the extent you know, clearly the committee members would also like to know, so.
Understandable.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
this kind of gets back to, we were meeting via Zoom.
Right.
And then the legislature or the governor told us we had to meet in person. And I kind of wish Ron was still on the phone call to ask if there's any consideration to allowing more Zoom in lieu of personal calls, personal meetings.
I think that's a very fair request. I'm not sure of the best way to, excuse me, I'm not sure of the best way to get that determination, but I would suggest that we ask staff to request the TBARTA board to seek more flexibility, not just for the CAC, probably for the board themselves, in meeting quorums. May not last, may not need that flexibility too many months, but it would certainly be nice to have it.
Well, even a quasi, you know, if we have a quorum in the room, having access to Zoom might be beneficial to somebody,
Right.
especially, you know, those if traveling from Hernando. I know, Bob,
Right.
you'd like to be here. I know that's what you'd love to see us. But at the same time, making these choices, as long as we have a quorum in a room, sunshine law does allow the quasi meetings.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I'll just offer a few thoughts on this, having had several conversations with our attorney on this issue. We follow the Florida statute, of course, and so my understanding is it's not up to the TBARTA board to be able to change the statutory requirement to meet physically for a quorum. As we have done, I think as the chair, you certainly could make these a Zoom meeting. But I speak that with a caveat without talking to our attorney. I do know that if we did meet electronically, you would not be able to have a physical quorum and you could not take any action. So you could listen to presentations, you could have discussion, but you can't take any vote on any item and offer that to the board as a formal recommendation from the committee. You could, in this instance, have a hybrid meeting, but anybody who joins electronically via Zoom, as I am, as a committee member, does not count toward that quorum. And one of the decisions I think we collectively made in discussing earlier whether we have a physical or a hybrid meeting was, if you offer the Zoom meeting, you obviously get more participation, more flexibility, understandably, but you probably harm your ability to get a physical quorum because those who know they can join by Zoom will do so. So that's a difficult decision, but I do believe that's something we can consider for future meetings, certainly. But those seem to be the options, as I understand them.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate that clarification. I won't speak for Karen, but I think her intent was to pursue the idea of a hybrid meeting
Correct.
and to comply with the law that if we have a quorum in the room that satisfies the quorum requirement, at least those who are participating electronically can be part of the discussion. They just simply cannot vote.
I believe that is the case. That is the case. If you can get a physical quorum in the room. The other side of that is if you offer the hybrid meeting and then, several people show up, but you don't get a quorum, then sometimes those who have made the effort to attend physically feel like, well, I should have just joined on Zoom to begin with. As we know, with physical only meetings, we've had a challenge in getting a quorum as it is. So
Right.
those are just all considerations to be made. But I do believe, and I would confirm with our attorney, that if we have a physical quorum present, that other committee members would be able to participate via Zoom if we wanted to do that.
I think that would be a good option, at least in the near term. We don't know how long this outbreak is going to be serious, but it's serious now. And certainly I want to encourage people to come and be present if they can be. But I think we should make it possible for them to participate remotely if need be. Bob Hinion, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, a long time ago, we ran into this problem of not having a quorum here physically present. It was partly due to the fact that people could phone in and participate that way
Right.
in meetings. And what we did, it was well over a year that we did not have a quorum, couldn't elect officers or anything. What we did at that time was establish ideas and messages to go to the board as a consensus. And we could probably continue to do that, although it doesn't carry the weight of having voted on things. It still does allow us to continue functioning
Right.
and contributing.
Right, and I remember those situations and I think Karen does as well. We certainly can try to do that where possible. Karen, you have a comment?
I just would like to say that I would rather have 10 people on Zoom and 3 people in this room than to have the 6 people we have in this room today, 7, because we're not hearing everybody's voices.
Right.
So I would rather have consensus than actual action at this point, because basically we're just approving the minutes. We're not really moving on anything else at this point. So I would like to hear from the people that are missing from this room.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I get a clarification? What is consensus, I guess? What does that really mean as opposed to a vote? How is that different?
The way Bob Hinion described it, and we've handled it in the past, by my memory is the chair voiced a position and asked if there was any opposition to that on the committee. And if there was none, the chairman then reported that to the TBARTA board as being the sense of the committee. Mr. Johnson probably has a better explanation than I.
I think you're very close to being right. I remember going to a parliamentary procedure training session, and the definition of consensus was the chair saying without objection, this will be adopted by consensus. Now, we can't officially adopt it because we don't have a quorum, but that is my understanding of consensus as well.
Good. I think that's what we understand has happened in the past. And I'm certainly agreeable to taking that action in the future.
We can certainly inquire. We'll inquire with our attorneys. I'll let
Yep,
you know.
we have a new attorney now. Let's get his opinion. Thank you. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the Regional Rail Summit highlights. Brian, you going to bring us up to speed on that one?
Sure. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. This committee asked just for a highlight of what was discussed at the Regional Rail Summit. This was back in December, on December 10th to be precise. The occasion of the meeting, it was a joint meeting of the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance and the TMA Leadership Group. One of the longer agenda items on that meeting was a listening session that FDOT is doing statewide. They're going around to different parts of the state, conducting these listening sessions on the topic of passenger rail. FDOT has recognized a need for a new statewide passenger rail strategy. Up until recently, when it came to rail, FDOT's focus had always been on freight rail. And Secretary Tebow has challenged the leadership in the central office to rethink that, to reconsider how the state can better support passenger rail in Florida. The two main speakers from FDOT at this listening session were Brad Thoborn. He is the Assistant Secretary for Strategic Development, and Kenyatta Lee. She is their Chief of Modal Development. When Brad gave his presentation, he mentioned how the FDOT is looking into making changes to what is called their Strategic Intermodal System, or SIS, policy plan. Making changes to this policy that would create more flexibility for funding rail projects. He also mentioned that they are in the process of updating the state's rail plan. That'll be done in December of this year. And the comments that they are gathering as they do these listening sessions around the state are going to be incorporated into the rail plan. A good part of the listening session involved a series of polling questions that were asked to the audience. For example, they asked, what are the challenges and barriers to passenger rail in Florida? No surprise, the majority of the people present in the room said funding. Another question that another polling question that FDOT asked was, what can FDOT do to help address these challenges and barriers? Again, no real surprise with the answers. Most of the people said what we need help from the state with is funding for operations, as well as funding to acquire right-of-way, especially with the CSX corridor. Then in the rest of the meeting, Commissioner Mariano from Pasco County made a motion that the TMA leadership group support both the I-275 regional rapid transit and negotiation with CSX for the Brooksville and Clearwater subdivisions. That motion passed unanimously. And then Commissioner Starkey, also from Pasco County, made a motion that TBARTA be the lead agency for doing a study on the CSX corridor and best uses. You may recall we're planning on taking a similar resolution to our own TBARTA board for the study. But anyway, getting back to Commissioner Starkey's motion at the TMA leadership group, that motion passed unanimously as well. So those are my notes from the meeting. Bill, if I recall, you were at that meeting as well, so I don't know if there was anything I missed that you wanted to touch on.
Brian, no, I think those are the highlights that will be of interest to this committee. You might add, if there's anything to add, what may have developed of those two motions since the December 10th meeting, if anything.
One thing I will comment on that came out of that meeting, someday this week, I don't know what particular day it is, but Ms. Kenyatta Lee from FDOT is supposedly meeting with representatives from CSX to find out, are they still interested in selling those two subdivisions? And also to find out, there were a number of conditions that CSX had placed back in 2015 on the sale of those two subdivisions. For example, one of their conditions was that even if the state bought it, they would want to retain the right in perpetuity to operate freight rail on those corridors. So I believe when Ms. Lee meets with CSX, she's going to revisit those conditions from 2015 and find out if those are still true for CSX. Ming Gao from District 7 and I spoke last week, and he basically asked me to follow up with him next week to see what was the results of these discussions.
Right. Well, that'll be interesting to see what comes of those discussions because in Hillsborough County, HART has been designated the lead agency to negotiate with CSX. So sure you're aware of that. Let's be sure that we're speaking with one voice as a region rather than one county at a time.
Now that I was not aware, could you elaborate on that? Because that's news to me.
That's a position that's been in place for some time. HART is the only agency, I'm told, that can accept federal funds for transit and transportation. And they've been specifically asked by the county commission to be the lead agency in negotiating with CSX. Commissioner Kemp has somewhat spearheaded that process. And I do not know the status of those negotiations or conversations at this point.
I mean, ultimately, CSX is going to say who will be the ones they will deal with. The last go around, going back to 2015, when this was being discussed, CSX had insisted that the state be the lead negotiator on the right of way. So anyway, just putting that out there.
Well, I bring it up in part because this is a regional transit agency. TBARTA is charged with that responsibility. And at the very least, I think TBARTA should have a seat at the table in those conversations. And HART has a responsibility to the taxpayers of Hillsborough County, but has no direct responsibility to the surrounding counties. And I think we need to be mindful of where their obligations lie and be sure that whomever is approaching CSX about their regional system is truly representing the region. That's my thought.
Well, as Mr. Chairman, as I recall, going back to 2015, CSX required the sale of the entire package throughout multiple counties rather than just chunks of it.
That's my recollection as well, and I've heard that voiced recently as still being the case. And Brian, if you were not aware of that, you need
that is my understanding as well.
Okay.
That what is up for consideration is the entire Brooksville subdivision, the entire Clearwater subdivision, not just bits and pieces of it.
Good. Good. Yeah. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, Brian, you mentioned the document that's going to be ready in December. Can you again tell me what that document is and why is it taking till December to produce?
Great.
This is a state document. This is FDOT's statewide rail plan. So they are in the process, I guess they are in the process of updating it. And that was the date that Mr. Thoborn gave at the meeting is when they anticipate finishing it. I'm guessing part of it is because, like I said, they are doing a statewide listening tour. So they visited the Tampa area this past December. They're going to be doing similar listening tours in all other parts of the state. And those comments are going to get fed into the statewide rail plan.
Don't you think that's a rather long time for a piece of paper?
I have no comment on a state timetable or document. That's not, that's a DOT planning document.
I mean, we talk about let's start doing things, instead of studying ad infinitum. And I think the two Bobs and two Bills that are here today probably agree with me. Or not.
Randy Milkis is recognized.
Does the green mean go?
There you are. You're hot.
Oh, here we go. So Brandy Nicholas, it's like Nicholas, but with an M. My understanding is I attended the December 10th meeting and from the discussion where it was presented kind of like a, hey, we're not only going to talk to Tampa Bay, but you're our first stop. They, as in the state, they have a lack of a passenger rail or some sort of like statewide rail plan. But they have one for freight, and they have statewide intermodal system. But my understanding was that they really have not taken the same approach when it comes to rail. So they wanted to maybe dust off some old information, because of course they had the high-speed rail like network, but that was a US network. So that would been part of it. But I just think also just because of the private passenger rail operations in the state of Florida, led by Brightline, it's been, people are using it. And I know that COVID was a game changer there, and there's pause in service, but Amtrak even did the same thing. Tampa Union Station has daily trains now. They only had it like 4 days a week during COVID. So long story short, I believe the state is taking an approach where they want to talk to each region around the state, and they want to put together a plan for future long-term passenger rail. And they want it to be something that would be a little more similar to some of the other statewide plans that they already have on the that they consistently update, because they don't really do that right now. So.
That's pretty much my understanding as well. Thank you for that.
Thank you
input.
for that.
Yep.
I mean, putting it quantitatively, there are 67 counties, and if you think there's 52 weeks in a year, and each week you go to a different county, that would get you to December.
Ish, yeah.
That's true, but I think they're doing it on a somewhat regional basis by FDOT district.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact, but I think they're doing it on more than one county at a time. What I'm understanding.
Bill, can I ask a question? I
Yes.
don't know if anybody knows this. Is CSX a monopoly on the East Coast?
No.
No? There's other rail lines that we have on the East Coast?
There are some, you mean in Florida?
In the East Coast?
East Coast of the United States, there are others.
Yeah.
Railroads that serve the Washington DC area as well as CSX.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Hayden.
Something that you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, is an impatience with the pace that things are going. This whole business of CSX goes way the hell back.
Right.
Back to when Ed Tarancik, the Hillsborough County Commissioner, was going to do a lease of the Clearwater branch and do that. And that was near the turn of the century. So we really have to express our impatience with any delays. We have to move forward, and we can't spend another 20 years talking about it.
Fair enough. And
Well said.
I guess in that light, let me be a little more clear in my request to Brian. Brian, if you'd find out how this discussion with CSX interfaces with the Hillsborough County discussions, I won't even call them negotiations yet, and let us know at the next meeting what's your sense of who's going to take the lead and how you think this might progress so that we can begin to see some activity. Okay?
Sure.
I just want a caveat on that. We have so much money coming out of Washington right now, and this is a missed opportunity if we're not able to move on this quicker.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, right away.
It would be a good time to have a plan. All right. That is our new business, this committee discussion section. Is there any other new business to come up before we move into presentations? Anyone on the committee have any new business? And Brandy, you're welcome to bring anything up you care to as well. All right, seeing none, we'll move into the presentations. The first one is the 2021 Vanpool Marketing Presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hope you can hear me well and see the title page on the screen. At the last CAC meeting, there was a discussion about some of the marketing and outreach endeavors that we could do, and we had a fairly robust Vanpool marketing campaign thanks to some grant dollars last year. So Chairman Roberts asked me to go over some of that and detail you on some of the things that we actually did. So let me call up the first slide. This was all made possible because we had a service transportation grant that was awarded to TBARTA back in May 2019. And you'll note that was before COVID outbreak happened on us. Originally, the term was 2 years. It was going to expire last June. And the express purpose of this grant was to expand the regional Vanpool program. So important to note that TBARTA has a number of grants that we work with, and many of them are very specific into what we can and cannot do with the money. And in this case, this was to promote the Vanpool program. The grant amounts, 25% of it went for Vanpool subsidies. Ken and Arlinda are going to talk about that a little bit later. Those are the money that actually goes to help offset and incentivize people to use carpools and vanpools. But 2/3 of it, $262,000, went for marketing and outreach. What we decided to do was split the money. It has to fit within TBARTA's budget as well as within the grant parameters. And so 50% of it was targeted for spring of last year, 50% of it of fall. That should actually in fiscal year 22 of the TBARTA budget. And we asked FDOT to grant us a 6-month extension, which got us through last December 31st. So those funds have been spent and have expired. But we think we've used them well. We did know that last year when we were, if you remember about a year ago, we were about 1 year into COVID, people were starting to get back into work, and we felt that commute patterns were starting to evolve and change. So we felt that there was opportunity there to reach out to people who otherwise had not been considering Vanpool and make sure they knew what the program could actually do. So let me first talk about the first phase of the program. That was spring 2021. Our total budget was just over $130,000, and we focused on billboards and social media. The idea of billboards was to place them on the major thoroughfares of people who most likely would use Vanpool, those traveling longer distances to work on the Veterans and I-275 and I-4 coming in. We solicited with the 3 major billboard companies in our area. Clear Channel Outdoor was the superior one. It included a combination of the standard billboards where they are basically put up on a wall and they sit there, as well as digital billboards and mobile ad targeting, which I'll talk about a little bit later. This is just a quick look at kind of the map that shows you there. You can't really see those circles very well, but the half circles kind of show where the billboard would live on the map. And you can see like a circle number 4 there, kind of in the middle next to Temple Terrace. So you actually had billboards facing in both directions. But these were selected to get that audience that we were actually looking for. Here's a look at one of the billboards that we came up with. Clear Channel came up with the creative, and we tried to use some of the marketing slogans that we felt were appealing to people who wanted to do billboards. But we also used a number of other ads along the way and a lot of other images. And so especially on the digital billboards, this type of imagery would rotate. And we also placed these so that they usually would air most of the times in the morning when people were driving in. So you wouldn't necessarily get one at noon, but you might get one on your way into work or your way out. We're certainly trying to be strategic in targeting the audience. Something that was also very interesting about this campaign is that it involves something called Radar Connect, mobile ad targeting. What this means is as you drive into work, let's say at 8 o'clock in the morning on I-275, the technology when driving past this billboard, we don't know if you've read it, but Clear Channel has technology that could kind of grab your IP signal. And then in doing mobile ads later that day, let's say you're surfing the web and you're looking for news or a sports score. As you know, there's a lot of different ads that rotate there. You could be targeted for one of these other ads. So we have repetition. So the mobile ad you might see if you're looking at baseball scores at night on the ESPN app, this might come up if you drove by that billboard. Whereas somebody who was not on the interstate, whose phone did not drive by this billboard, would not be subject to that mobile ad targeting, which we think is very clever. You can't really read this, and I don't intend you to, but wanted to show it to you, let you know there's some pretty robust, detailed analytics to this. Overall, there were more than 2 million impressions through mobile ad targeting and about 5,400 clicks. So it did have some effectiveness. And this is just a quick look at all the billboards and all the total impressions and spots throughout the campaign. Totaled more than 1,500,000 total views and impressions, up to 34 million. So we felt we had some pretty good outreach with the billboards. The second part of spring 2021 was with a digital media firm known as Digisphere. We also wanted to use Facebook and LinkedIn, social media, maybe Instagram, to reach out to people and get that messaging that Vanpool might be something they want to consider right now. We selected Digisphere because they added a video component to their marketing as opposed to just flat display ads. They were going to produce video for us. And we liked that idea because we knew we could use that video for other outreach as well. So I want to play you one of the ads that would play, you might click on. This is the longer version. It's 60 seconds long, but there were 10, 15-second versions depending upon what they needed.
Do you commute to Tampa Bay for work? In an effort to make commuting easier for everyone, the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority, also known as TBARTA, operates a safe and reliable Vanpool service for riders commuting to work locations in Hernando, Hillsborough, Citrus, Pasco, and Pinellas counties. TBARTA pays $400 a month toward the cost of the van and its upkeep. This alone saves you thousands of dollars each year in vehicle costs. There are numerous benefits to joining TBARTA's Commute Tampa Bay Vanpool program. It's easy and convenient to search for nearby riders, and we make safety a top priority. If you have any questions about TBARTA's Commute Tampa Bay Vanpool program, please feel free to contact us at 1-800-998-RIDE. That's 1-800-998-7433. Have a happy commute.
And there was a little bit of video breakup on that, so I apologize for that. It has to do with our video connection here, but the ad played much smoother than that. One thing I wanted you to note was if you clicked on the ad, it would then take you to a landing page with more information on how you can use Commute with Tampa Bay to Vanpool. Notice the image down in the sort of the bottom of the screen there, the gentleman looking at his cell phone, that tied into some of our billboard marketing. So there was synergy between the two campaigns. The imagery was very similar. And of course, the landing page that Digisphere developed for us provided that ability to reach out with us and request more information. Now I'm going to move on to the fall campaign. And in this campaign, we also spent about $131,000 and we split it up between radio, television, and social media. Billboards were good. They did the outreach and we feel like we got a lot of messaging out there, but we wanted to try to reach commuters, especially in the morning with radio and television as they might be getting ready for work. And so we used 4 vendors. We went back to Digisphere. I'll talk about that a little bit, but we also added on WTSP and their morning newscast. And some radio, Total Traffic and Weather Network. They provide the traffic reports for many radio stations around town, and then iHeartRadio, which has a very significant network. I'll start with Digisphere. We went back to them because we wanted to use the video that was already produced, but target employers specifically. As you know, we really have offerings in Vanpool for both people who want to join a Vanpool, but also employers, because if you organize a Vanpool at your place of work, we feel like we can sign people up more easily. And there are a lot of advantages for employers, which I know Ken and Arlinda are going to talk about. So I won't get into too much of that, but Digisphere was able to provide a new landing page and some emails to employers using some of the search tools they have to develop that. 10 News, Tampa Bay, WTSP, we solicited proposals from most of the TV stations in town. And the 10 News proposal was a superior. We said we wanted to be associated with traffic in the morning, and we wanted a spot that could air adjacent to some of the news when people are getting up and getting ready to go and thinking, oh, I got that long drive today. We wanted to hit that type of audience. Here's an example of that spot.
Lots of us drive in traffic like this every day. Why not enjoy the ride in a Commute Tampa Bay Vanpool? You'll save hundreds of dollars each month, thousands each year. CommuteTampaBay.com from TBARTA will help you form a Vanpool with your friends or join one that's already on the road. You save on gas money, help the environment, and enjoy a stress-free commute while watching the savings add up. Go to CommuteTampaBay.com to create your account and start saving. CommuteTampaBay.com, a service from the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority.
And I'm sure you recognize some of that video. So we repurposed the Digisphere video. Here's a 5-second spot. This is known as a billboard that would also run adjacent to some of those traffic reports.
Join a Vanpool at CommuteTampaBay.com.
Very quick little 5-second spot as well. We also wanted to use radio because we know that once people get in their car after they've watched maybe a morning newscast, see what the traffic is, they're listening to radio on their way in. And once again, we solicited Beasley Radio, iHeart, and Cox. Those are the major radio groups here in town. And in iHeart, we like this proposal because we were going to use 2 different spokespersons for 2 different messages. Employers, we want to get a different message to them as opposed to commuters. And in this case, Jack Harris, we felt as an experienced, well-recognized voice here in Tampa Bay would be a good voice to reach out to employers. And Sarah Jacobs delivered the message for commuters. So let's start now. There was several versions of this, but this is the 60-second version of the Jack Harris message.
Howdy, Jack Harris here, and this is a message for all of you employers out there. I know many of you are struggling to find good employees. If so, consider adding Vanpool services from Commute Tampa Bay. Employees who share the ride save hundreds of dollars each month. By adding Vanpool to your benefits package, you attract and retain more employees. What's more, Commute Tampa Bay will set the program up for you at no cost. This is a free public service provided by the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority to help reduce traffic congestion. So we all win. Find out more at CommuteTampaBay.com. They'll be happy to talk with you and fill you in on all the benefits you and your employees will get with a Commute Tampa Bay Vanpool program. That's CommuteTampaBay.com. And once again, check them out at CommuteTampaBay.com.
And even though Jack's most often associated with the WFLA AM, those spots ran on all the 9 stations you see up there. Concurrently, at the same time, Sarah Jacobs was messaging to drivers.
Admit it, you don't want to drive to work anymore, but you have to get there somehow. So why not switch it up and ride in a Vanpool from Commute Tampa Bay? Leave your car at home and let somebody else do the driving while you relax and save a bunch of money with a stress-free commute. Visit CommuteTampaBay.com. They'll help you form a Vanpool with friends, or you can join one that's already on the road. Plus, when you do your part to reduce traffic congestion, you earn points for amazing rewards like restaurant coupons, retailer discounts, or tickets to shows and attractions. And don't worry about ever being stranded at work if you need to go home early. When you join a Vanpool, you're automatically registered for their emergency ride home program with up to 6 free rides home every year. So you save money, you win rewards, you help save the environment. We all win when you sign up with Commute Tampa Bay. Create your free account today at CommuteTampaBay.com. That's CommuteTampaBay.com. A public service from TBARTA, the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority.
That was part of our radio campaign. We also wanted to have our message next to those traffic spots. I don't know about you, but when I drive in from northern Hillsborough County, I come down the Veterans Expressway and I know that there's going to be a traffic and weather report on WFLA AM every 10 minutes or so. So I kind of tune in for that at the top of the hour as well. We wanted to make sure people who were thinking about, man, I hope I don't get stuck in traffic today, we're hearing our commuter ad as well. The total traffic and weather network is actually sending out spots not only to the iHeart stations, but also Beasley radio stations as well. So they're affiliated with iHeart, but they're a little bit broader than that. Here's an example of one of those messages.
This report is sponsored by CommuteTampaBay.com.
Delays on northbound 275 now just off the Howard Franklin Bridge. A crash off to the right-hand side on the exit lanes to State Road 60 and the airport. Also, we're seeing delays southbound 275 between Bush Boulevard and Hillsborough Avenue. No major problems to report on I-75 throughout the area. Watch for congestion in downtown Tampa. Opening night for the Tampa Bay Lightning. See traffic problems? Call the Safe Touch Security Traffic Tip Line 866-545-9595. With traffic, I'm Randy Myers.
Tired of driving in rush hour traffic? Join a Commute Tampa Bay Vanpool. You'll avoid the aggravation and save hundreds each month. And if you're an employer, let Commute Tampa Bay set up your company's Vanpool program at no cost. Find out more at CommuteTampaBay.com.
So you hear the bookends there. We had a brief sponsorship mentioned at the top, and then the message came at the end of that traffic report. Finally, I'm going to give you one more example of something. This is about a 3-minute interview, which we call earned media. The spots I showed you before are paid sponsorships, require obviously some funding, and we pay for those messages to be out there. earned media is essentially news coverage. When you do something that's of value, that the news media comes out and gives you some publicity for it as well. I think we've done a really good job over the last couple of years of getting a number of earned media opportunities. I know David, myself, Brian, Ken, we've all been on either radio or television. This is an example of some earned media we had in concert with the Vanpool program.
Now joining us, Director of Communications for TBARTA, Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority. He's Chris Jadek. Good morning and welcome back to the show, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Aaron. Good morning, Jack. How are you guys doing today?
Terrific.
And today we wanted to bring you on because we wanted to talk to you about TBARTA Vanpool. First of all, what is it? How does it work?
Well, a Vanpool is a group of 5 to 15 commuters who regularly travel back and forth to work. Usually they all work for the same employer, so there's a single destination. And when you're in a TBARTA Vanpool, there are a lot of benefits. The big one is cost. Most riders save hundreds of dollars each month because they're not driving themselves. There's even a monthly federal subsidy that we want to publicize, $400 each month for each Vanpool. That helps offset the rental fee for the vans. Plus, fewer vehicles on the road mean less congestion for all of us, better for the environment. Those are just some of the advantages that we like to talk about.
Now, what is the cost of being a member of the Vanpool?
Well, there's no cost for being a member. What you do is you share the cost of the ride. So you do have to rent a vehicle, and we work with Commute with Enterprise. They provide the rental vehicles for us. They're our partners in this. And, of course, you pay for gas. But you're not paying for the insurance on the vehicle. You're not paying for the maintenance. So you share a lot of those costs. But other than that, this is actually a service that we provide through FDOT to reduce traffic congestion. So it's a public service that people can take advantage of to reduce their own commuting costs. The only cost is really going to be the shared cost of that van, that vehicle that you're going to need to rent.
It's a really good idea. I'm interested, when you were coming up with the idea, were you aiming it at specific people saying, well, this would be best suited for X, this person?
This goes back actually even before TBARTA. TBARTA was formed, I think, about 2007, and commuting services through FDOT have been available many years before that, and it's done throughout the state in many ways. The idea is that we have a lot of traffic congestion, so we can build more roads, we can add transit. We're doing all of those things here in the Tampa Bay area. But if we also reduce the number of people on the roads, obviously, then we have less need for that type of traffic mitigation, as you would say. It works best for people who are going to travel longer distances to work for a single employer, say 20 or more miles. Also, those who work a standard shift, such as 8 to 5. So they're coming and going at the same time. But important to note that if you're in a TBARTA Vanpool, we have other programs such as emergency ride home that give you a ride home in case you get stranded. A lot of the things we've thought about, if people are going to give up their own vehicle, what are they going to need to get back and forth to work and still have the independence they need?
Well, one thing that people wonder about, I mean, we're one of the last metro areas without mass transit, such as light rail or something like that. I mean, we've got it at the airport. We had some of the first light rail in the country at the airport, and yet we don't have anything like that in our Tampa Bay area. Any chance of that happening in the future?
Well, I think there's always a chance about that. TBARTA is working on our bus rapid transit project. There's been a lot of talk recently about how we get rail here. That's always part of our conversations. We have great local transit providers, but we need to provide for them too. They are also challenged on funding. So we need to take care of our local transit providers, and we need to connect ourselves regionally. So, Jack, there certainly is a chance, and there are a lot of people who are working on this project right now. I think we all agree it's long overdue, but it's certainly something that I think Tampa Bay is going to see in its future.
Chris, if there are people that do want to get involved in the TBARTA Vanpool, how can they find out more information and get started?
Best way is to go to our website, commutetampabay.com, and let me just emphasize, if you're an employer, please check us out as well. We like to work with employers because this is a great benefit for your employees, helps with recruitment and retention.
CommuteTampaBay.com. That's where you can find out more. Chris Jadek, Director of Communications for TBARTA. Thanks so much for joining us again, Chris.
Hey, guys, thanks a lot.
And that's just one example of some of the earned media we've received. We post these stories, radio and television, on our website. If you just go to tbarta.com, you'll find in the About section TBARTA in the news. They're all posted on our YouTube page. And if you page down on this page, you actually see a lot of the publicity we've gotten on all the television stations here in town, including, I think it was Univision. We actually got our Telemundo. It was a Telemundo station. We've gotten some publicity on as well, too. So with that, I will wrap it up, but I hope you found that of interest, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Chris. A lot of good information in there. Questions from the committee? Karen?
I have a load of questions. The first one being, can we get a is it QCR?
QR
sticker?
code?
Yeah, put on the back of the vehicles. And more marketing information on the logo, sticker on the side of the vehicles.
I'm going to defer to Ken or Arlinda on that. You know, Arlinda is our Commute with Enterprise person. You can see she's on deck to talk about the program. Arlinda, do you want to address that now or wait until your presentation?
We can address it now. That's something that we've discussed. So you're just talking about putting a sticker on or the existing decals on it?
Well, the existing decals are nice, but the telephone number is too long when you're driving. But you need something quick and, hey, I know what this is. Or a QR code that a person can pull out there that's supposed to be doing it while they're driving, but are able to capture the QR code to get to the link. I mean, you're talking about something that's moving, but we need to be able to slow that down for them.
I get you. That's something that we haven't discussed. I can most certainly bring it up to our marketing team to see if it's a QR code on the actual vehicle itself would be a benefit. It is something that we have used in marketing material in the past where they can just kind of scan it. It'll take them directly to the site and walk them through how to register to identify if there's a Vanpool in the area or how to start a Vanpool. But I'll certainly bring that up to our marketing team to see if it's a benefit to add it to the actual Vanpool itself, the vehicle.
Okay, my second question, is this live? Is this all live right now? Or is this still in?
This campaign I just talked to you about?
Yes.
This concluded in December. The grant funds need to be spent by December. So we wrapped up right before Christmas.
Okay, are we considering hitting Spotify or Pandora with this information? Because I don't know of anybody in my circles that actually listen to radio.
I don't know how to hit Spotify or Pandora. I would tell you we would use we reached out to our digital marketing, when we did solicitations for campaigns, no one came back with a Spotify campaign, so to speak. And I would tell you that the grant money has been spent, so we don't have additional grant money to spend on this campaign.
But I'm saying in the future, is it something that we can?
Absolutely. We definitely, I think it's a great idea, and I'll keep that in consideration for anything we could do in the future. I think it's a great idea.
That's it.
Anything
Sorry,
else?
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, other questions? Bill Johnson.
I'm not sure whether to delay it until after the next presentation, but I'm interested in what is a reasonable goal to have number of vehicles? Like, could we have 10,000 Vanpool vehicles on the road in 3 years? I mean, you look at the number of people in the Tampa Bay area, it's a huge number, and 10,000 is hardly, a nit on that total number. And I wonder, do we have a goal of reaching all employers with more than 200 employees? Is there some metrics that we're using to try to reach out to that?
What's our target market?
Ken, I think that's best directed to you because I know you're working on those things.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a goal. I think, if you start to look at this based on the funding that we have to keep Vanpools, that $400 a month subsidy going, $10,000 or 10,000 Vanpools on the road might be a little bit of a stretch for us right now to meet financially. But with that said, we do have goals. Part of our goal for 2021 was to recover from COVID. And I think we've done that admirably. I just want to mention that this last campaign, we were getting people calling in about the Vanpool program, where previously that was a rarity when I first started. So we've been able to regain the capacity that we had with our earlier Vanpool. So people that left Vanpool due to COVID, COVID protocols. Those van pools have been refilled for the most part. But it's interesting, we were getting a lot of phone calls in from employers. So that message about attracting and retaining employees really resonated with folks. And that's just, we've had quite a jump up in the number of people that we're working with, for instance, in the East Bay, where there isn't, reliable transit service that works for most people. So these employers everybody's competing for the same employee base. They're using Vanpool or Vanpool program to differentiate themselves from other employers. And Arlinda and I had a really interesting conversation with an organization called Fit Life Foods. They're looking to expand their services. They want to grow. And the thing that's holding them back right now is that they don't have employees. And so, their mission really is to utilize Vanpool it's something that Amazon, for instance, isn't using. So they're trying to distinguish themselves from a long list of employers out there that are hiring from the same employee pool. But yes, our goals are to grow the program and really to make sure that we're recovered fully from COVID, even through this recent uptick in COVID. We're excited to get into 2022 and have a fresh start. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
I have one.
Karen, go ahead.
All right, so our area, can you hear me? Our area is a hotspot for rent spikes along with housing problems. We have a number of areas that are having real difficulty cultivating any kind of person to come knocking at the door for employment. We are pushing our worker base further and further, especially from Pinellas County. We're talking at least 2-hour drive for some people to get into the county to work at a $7.50 job. My concern is with EMS staffing paramedics and EMTs on each unit, and they're having more and more difficulty recruiting because of housing. Is there a way that we can work with these units and work with the Chamber of Commerce's in the area to produce a product that can move people from the outskirts at this point? Because housing is not going to be dealt with for a very, very long time. It's something we're talking about, but the governor did not bring it up in his opening speech of this legislative session. So I don't see money coming to us in that way. So my concern is, can we pivot to asking the emergency services along with the Chamber of Commerce's in the area to see what we can do to patch this situation? Thanks.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I can probably speak to that, Ken, that we are working on. We have a great partnership with many chambers, just Enterprise on its own as a rental company. So Commute with Enterprise being the baby brand of it. We already have a lot of those partnerships and have presented to them, to a lot of the businesses that are involved, which typically tend to be on a smaller scale. So we haven't seen too much success, but Ken and I are involved in the downtown transportation committees, really any type of board that has the word transportation on it, to just kind of bring awareness on the program. And to your point, you're absolutely right. A lot of companies are now hiring from rural areas because, talk about affordable housing, that's where it's available. So this is a great tool to help expand that hiring platform to look for top talent. That's kind of the partnership that we have had with a lot of companies is because of that right now, where we're encouraging them to say, hey, here's a tool, provide the transportation. TBARTA is going to offer the first 400, but you as the employer who are not able to retain these folks, is there a subsidy you could offer, right? Is there something to offset the cost, pre-tax payroll deduction? That's something else that we encourage as well. And we have seen some success. So we're actually partnering up with the career sources of each county as well to enforce this option, to say, hey, great. What I'm hearing right now is Tampa is hiring from Lakeland. So that is a long distance drive, right, to get to and from the work site. So this is where we're saying, hey, you're hiring from Lakeland. How about we get all those folks from Lakeland to use this as a solution to get them to and from the work site? And again, you, the work site, offset the cost for that. So we're seeing some success. A lot of our success, and Ken and I are going to share an update, is with federal sites because of all the funding they have available. They have additional transit funding in place to basically fully cover the cost of the Vanpool. So the idea is to work a lot more in the private sector to bring awareness on the program and kick off some Vanpools in 2022.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I would just piggyback on that and mention that my predecessor had a really good relationship with CareerSource, Cindy Raskin, and the marketing campaign that we just recently concluded, I think only strengthened that relationship with CareerSource. And they're actually doing exactly what you've talked about, where they're going out to these remote locations, remote housing sites, because nobody can afford to live in Tampa anymore, or St. Petersburg. And that's where they're finding the employees. And so it's that connection that they're building with those communities, and then our connection with employers that I see a lot of synergy coming out of. You're right on target with those are the folks that we really need to be talking to. I completely concur with that.
In terms of growth too, economic development, we have developed partnerships with ones from each county. There's a lot of businesses moving to our area and the counties that we support. So, and they're used to a lot more transportation solution, right? They're used to rail. Those are the folks that really see this, see the positive side of Vanpool, and they strongly encourage it to their employers, and typically are the ones that end up subsidizing. So letting our EDC folks know that, hey, there is a transportation solution. Let's introduce it to this company that's going to hire 250 employees in St. Pete and start fresh, that there is some solutions that we could offer in hiring and recruiting.
Good question, Karen. Thank you. Any other questions on this topic? Bob Hillian, go ahead.
Not really a question. It's an additional marketing angle or issue that could be brought up when you're trying to sell the employers and the employees and the communities that they're in as you move on to the consolidated areas, and that is parking. It definitely impacts parking, which benefits the employer, benefits the employee who doesn't have to worry about that, and it also benefits the communities. In Dunedin, which I'm involved with, we just purchased an 1.5 acres for parking, just a flat lot, $4 million in downtown.
Yeah.
Someday we'll put up a parking garage, but parking is a major issue.
Agreed.
And a good sale point you could throw in.
Yeah, and I'm actually excited to share some of the numbers that we're going to show off of the existing Vanpools that we have in terms of parking and what we've been able to do at a lot of these sites. So it's a great point.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think parking, the offset of not having to pay for parking is a significant cost of the commute. So I hope we're touting that as part of our package. Any other questions on this item?
Just, is there another presentation or?
I think
There
there's
is.
a second presentation, yes. They're all kind of tied together.
That's
You
right.
want to move on to that one? Are you ready? Committee ready?
Sure.
Let's move on to the next presentation, which is the Vanpool Program Report. Same two suspects, if you don't mind.
Sounds good.
Randy, I'm sorry, did you have any comment? I didn't see you waving. So, okay, thank you. All right.
Chris, I might have you share the screen because it's not allowing me to share the correct one.
All right, hang on a second. Let me see what you, stop sharing and let me see what we got here.
That's actually, you know what? I've got it. It wasn't giving me the option, but here I am.
Very good.
You see it now?
I see
Perfect.
your lovely family.
Oh, then it's not sharing the correct.
And do the next screen. When you open up that one screen, it says maybe you have to click a different screen.
Yeah, I clicked this the second screen and it still wasn't letting me. So
All right, if you stop sharing, I'll pull it up.
try it one more time and
Okay.
okay. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
All right, hang on one second
Yeah,
here.
for some reason, Zoom does not give me the 1, 2, 3, even though I'm selecting 2.
This is why we always have a plan. of
I figured,
B.
yep, I'll have you drive.
Hold on one second. Let me cue you up here.
Perfect, thank you.
1 second, and you will be good to go. And just let me know when you want to change things.
Sounds great.
About good to go.
And just a quick introduction, again, I'm Arlene Decaroli. I'm the account executive for Commute with Enterprise. So obviously with TBARTA, we've got this great partnership. And I oversee the Vanpool program. So my job is to grow the program, right? Identify more opportunities, work with employers, see who has the need for it. Go ahead to the next screen, Chris. So just a quick overview of the agenda. I know that on the marketing material that we listened to, there was a quick Vanpool 101, right, how it works. I did want to highlight some of the items that are included. Ken is going to talk to us a bit more about that TBARTA's subsidy and the emergency ride home program. We've got a map of all the existing Vanpools, right? We want to show you guys exactly, you know, what that covers. This is a beautiful, messy map, and then Ken will get a more detailed version of it at the end of the presentation. We're going to talk about some of the existing accounts, right? Key performance index of some of the results that we've seen over the year coming from them, and then highlight some of the benefits of the Vanpools. And we'll take some questions. Go ahead to the next screen, Chris. So just to do a quick overview of Vanpool, again, Chris mentioned it earlier when he was doing the interview with the radio station that it functions a lot like a large carpool, right? Ideally, what we end up seeing is 4 to 15 individuals that meet at a centralized location of their choice, and they use one of our commute vehicles to get to and from the work site. So the benefits being, if we've got long distance commuters, again, this gives rest to anyone else that's in the Vanpool. They can take some time back to the day. A lot of the employers that we have been working with most recently have quite a few folks that don't have a driver's license or other means of transportation. So this is also a great solution for them. The person that typically volunteers to be the driver for the Vanpool is known as our coordinator, and they get an extra 200 miles for personal use. So again, they get to keep the vehicle. We see a lot of folks eliminate a second vehicle if one of them was being utilized just to get to and from the work site. Some great benefits there. Next slide. So in terms of actual benefits to employees and why they love it, the late model fully equipped vehicles, right? We provide them with vehicles such as the 7-passenger Pathfinder that you see there, 8 passenger minivans, 10, 12, all the way up to 15. So this is something that the end user has the option to choose based on how many folks they've got available and what they're looking to pay. It is a month-to-month program, so this is not a long-term financial commitment. Ideally, we want the Vanpool to stay out on the road, but this is also a great option for those employees that are looking to hire for just 6-month seasonal hospitality business. We've seen quite a big boom from them as well. The life of a Vanpool pre-COVID was averaging about 6 years, so we're hoping to get back to those numbers. We've actually been very lucky with our existing participants right now, a lot of them even retiring in the Vanpools. So they certainly see the benefit. We do include the insurance. So Enterprise is going to cover the vehicle bumper to bumper up to a total loss. There's $1 million in liability. Best of all, we highlight here that there's no exposure to the work site. The employees are not getting paid to get to and from work. So if there is an incident, then this is not something that goes through workers' comp, right? So we typically use the employers to collect some data to see where folks are coming from, to be able to communicate easily with them. However, again, there's no exposure to them introducing this program. Enterprise covers the maintenance. As I mentioned, at the end of the day, we don't take the vehicle back. This is something that the participants get to keep, rotate through the personal use. So we do have preferred vendors that they could take it to for any type of maintenance, oil changes, things of that sort. Roadside is 24/7. So if they happen to lock keys in, get a flat tire. And best of all, I think that the highlight of the program is, again, something that we've been highlighting is the savings. Not only are they getting a subsidy, but we typically figure out what the cost of the vehicle is based on the distance, right? We give them a gas card. This is something that's optional to the group that we strongly encourage. And we also provide a stunt pass if necessary. Once we've got the total for the Vanpool, we break it down for each person to say, hey, if you've got 4 users, 5, 6, all the way to 15, this is what you're responsible for. So they kind of get an idea of where they break even utilizing their personal vehicle as opposed to the Vanpool, and then where they start saving and how many participants they need to kind of pocket that. Next slide. On this slide, I'm actually going to have Ken take over because it's going to be about the subsidy program.
Yeah, so TBARTA is able to provide a $400 a month subsidy. That money originates with the FTA, Federal Transit Administration, and then works its way through FDOT and eventually comes to TBARTA. And I think this is one of the big benefits for writing Vanpool. That's a huge cost savings and allows people to participate in what would otherwise be a fairly costly commute. We also provide for the emergency ride home. This is just simply a safety net so that if anybody has an illness that's on the Vanpool and needs to get home early, they need to miss their Vanpool, or they have an unscheduled change in their schedule, in their work schedule. It also allows them to stay late, miss their Vanpool, and we will provide a ride home with Uber, Lyft, or Yellow Cab. All they need to do is save the receipt, fill out a reimbursement form, and once we have that, we know that they're part of the Vanpool program, they are compensated for the cost of that ride home. And it's good for up to $100. Folks can use it up to 6 times in a calendar year. And it's also good for folks that are riding transit or in a carpool or bicycling and they get into an emergency situation and need assistance with getting home. All they need to do outside of the Vanpool program is to register an account on commutetampabay.com and record their commutes. The same procedure, they need to fill out the paperwork, the reimbursement form, and provide us with the receipt, and they're good to go. I'll let you, Arlinda, we can go on to the next slide. Oh, we'll jump right into the map. This is great. This map is really, I think, kind of a little hard to see, but represented on this are 160 Vanpools traveling throughout the region. Out of that, we have over 800 participants. And Chris, I was wondering if you could actually stop sharing this screen. And I'm going to try to actually share this map with folks. Can you see a map on the screen?
Yes.
All right, good. What's represented here are all of the Vanpools that are part of the ones marked in blue are part of the James Haley Vanpool program, and the ones in red are traveling to Bay Pines VA Hospital. And this is just to give you an overview of kind of that dense network of vans traveling across the area. But I made this so that we can actually toggle and we can start to bring up the van pools, for instance, from MacDill Air Force Base, you know, and how heavily concentrated they are in the East Bay area. And we can also toggle through other ones. The TSA represented at Tampa Airport and at the St. Petersburg Airport. Again, you can see the distribution and how widely these folks are traveling, how far they're traveling to get into their work location. And I just want to go through a couple additional ones that are up further north. Whoops, not the Coast Guard. The prisons Vanpool. But these are this is the Florida National Cemetery. It's a federal site. And just looking at all of the folks that are trying to get over into this work location, and this out to the far northeast is the federal prison system, where we have folks coming in from, you know, near where I live in Lutz, Temple Terrace. This kind of illustrates how the niche that Vanpool fits. It's really for that long distance commuter. But this map, hopefully we'll have this parked on our website for people to toggle through and look at where our Vanpools are coming, and hopefully we'll be able to add to this on a regular basis. And I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go back to the screen show. Oh. And suddenly I can't share. There we go.
Perfect. Next slide, Chris. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So just to kind of give you an idea, again, Ken went through all of the existing accounts that we do have a partnership with and Vanpool's delivered to, but just so you see them here, aside from the beautiful map, again, I love to see that map as messy it can be because we want to be able to add Vanpool. So we've got James A. Haley is one of our largest users, and talk about parking. So this Vanpool program has really been such a benefit to them and being able to recruit their folks, retain a lot more employees, and they actually have a dedicated parking spot for Vanpools. So they are encouraging their folks to participate in the program, and in doing so, they have got you know, over 60 of them in that parking lot. So we're excited to share some of those numbers. Bay Pines, VA, MacDill Air Force Base, again, another large user of ours. I do see quite a lot of opportunity coming from MacDill, and we've actually have done quite a lot of marketing internally and communicating with all their forces. So they've got CENTCOM, SOCOM, Air Force Base, Navy, all on that site, equaling 14,000 employees. And it's not just federal employees, it's a lot of contractors. So Ken and I have really been working with them through their onboarding process, bringing you folks in, letting them know that this program is available, because this is where the biggest opportunity for growth is. TSA Tampa and Pie, Florida National Cemetery, Coast Guard, and St. Pete, and then FCC Coleman. Again, something that they all have in common is that they are all federal sites. That means that they all have up to, now it's raised to $280 a month per participant as of January. That applies towards transit funding on top of the $400 subsidy from TBARTA. So something that Ken and I have been talking through right now is identifying opportunities for hospitals, for hotels, manufacturing sites, and other employers that have that shift worker employee that this program could really benefit from. Next slide, Chris. So the next slide is really going to be a great breakdown of the current program. So this is throughout the quarters, kind of we've seen some ups and downs. We've actually had quite a few members retire early because of COVID, but I am still thankful to say that we were able to maintain it in effect the way it needs to be, right? 160 is still a great number. In terms of parking spots reduced from the program, 657. This is typically something we strongly highlight when we're talking to those businesses in the downtown area, something where parking is a challenge. There's also a great number of employers that have to pay for parking on site. So those are the ones we strongly encourage to offer that funding, make it available for vanpooling to offset the cost. And now they would need one spot as opposed to, the 6 or all the way up to the 14 from the folks that were using that single occupancy vehicle. In terms of commuter miles saved, just 2020 year to date, almost 10 million miles. That's a significant number of miles that we took off the road. And then CO2 reduction. I know that Ken has a beautiful slide to show you guys, but these are some great numbers, right? In the 7.5 million area. It's something that we are doing locally for the community in terms of sustainability. And we're able to measure all these numbers out and share them with all of those existing accounts so that they could have bragging rights to say, hey, here's the parking spots reduced. Here's sustainability efforts we're making outside the four walls of the business. And this is why we should continue marketing the program and encourage participation. And in terms of employee savings, so this is, we did the numbers based on what if each person, each one of these over 800 participants paid their fuel, their tolls, and wear and tear maintenance on their personal vehicle, what would that cost on a yearly basis? We've been able to save over 5 million. And I think the next slide actually is going to talk a little bit more on impact to participants. So if you can go ahead, Chris, to the next. Perfect. So these are all those members, right? All 800 participants. This is some data shown of what the savings are based on their route, based on the miles that they have been recording on a monthly basis. And we've been able to save over $8,500 per year for an end user. And then also time back that they get in a year, 465 hours per year is what they spend just driving to and from the work site. That's full-time job, or a part-time job, I should say. But they're utilizing that time to refresh, recharge, come to work less stressed, right? Maybe get some work done on the way to the work site. If they're students, maybe get some of their schooling completed. So that's a significant amount of time that they get back in their day. And then the miles reduced, close to 20,000 miles per year. So we're estimating that that's what they're putting in their personal vehicle. And that means that 2 years from now, that's 40,000. And then we're looking at 60,000. Before you know it, they're going to need a new vehicle. So this is very significant to say, hey, you know what? Take that off. Don't worry about the wear and tear in your personal vehicle. In fact, you can also, again, as I mentioned earlier, maybe eliminate one if necessary, if you don't need it because you have a way to and from the work site. And you can keep those 20,000 miles and keep your vehicle newer for a longer period of time. So again, some very impactful number here. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Chris. I know that, to Ken. Chris, if you can move on to the next slide. I know Ken is going to highlight some of the benefits of the program.
Yeah, so we did some calculations to look, and this is all based on what we reported to the National Transit Database, NTD. We estimate that we saved over 6,569,000 pounds of CO2 emissions. And the graphic that Arlinda was referring to that's about the same amount of CO2 in the atmosphere that could be held in 1,665 Raymond James Stadium. So here's the graphic representation of that. Traffic congestion, the Vanpool program has the potential to really reduce the amount of traffic in our area. And we reduced traffic by 7,541, 882 miles of reduced vehicle miles traveled. And we estimate as well that folks were reducing their gasoline consumption by over 335,000 pounds or gallons of gas. Next slide. We've talked already about the benefit to the employees, but I just want to touch upon, to conclude this, the savings that employers or the benefits to employers. We know that employees participating in the Vanpool program tend to stick around for quite a while. The average Vanpool lasts up to 6 years. And so if that holds true for the employer, that's a savings of turnover and having to retrain employees that are new to your system. Employers also benefit from not having to pay if they're utilizing the pre-tax transportation benefit, which folks can deduct up to $280 starting in January of this year. That's a savings both for the employee, they save on their income tax, and employers don't have to pay on FICA. And so a good tax savings there. But there was a mention earlier about parking, and we calculate that over the past year, 2021, we freed up at least 7,132 parking spaces. So we know that this can be a benefit for places like Dunedin, for downtown St. Pete, and for downtown Tampa as well, anywhere where parking is restricted because of density. Next slide. So really, we just want to take any questions that you have and open this up to the floor. Our contact information is provided here. If you would like to contact us directly, feel free to do so.
Great, good. Thank you very much. Questions from the committee?
Just one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If we had the demand, would FDOT be able to provide more funding if the demand was there?
Yeah, so this is based, ultimately our funding comes from a formula. And so the greater use we have in the program, the more funding dollars we receive. It is possible that over a span of time, as the number of Vanpool participants expands, we would receive greater funding, a greater share of dollars from FTA. So yes.
So if we had 10,000 vans operating, we would be able to fund those.
If we try to put 10,000 on the road tomorrow, we would be strapped. We wouldn't be able to pay for it. We would need to ramp up to that number. Yeah. There's a ramp up period there.
Good.
Good question.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Karen?
On it. I like the plan.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the writer, on the writer. I want to know what is the turnaround for taxi reimbursement, because I've got to buy groceries this week.
Yeah, it's usually within a week. But with that said, sometimes, yeah, it can take up to 2 weeks to get reimbursed.
That's a hit. That's a huge hit on somebody who's not making, they're marginal at best, a lot of these people. So we need to be able to expedite that a little bit faster. Work on that. And also as a writer, I want to know how much I'm going to save. You guys are talking macros. I need micros so that I can talk to a person who we could possibly change their mind, get them out of their cars. I need the numbers that say, hey, you're gonna save this amount of money and sell it that way rather than to the employers, because the employers are going to be pressed to sell it to their people.
Right.
You know, hey, we have this program. We need the numbers to make sense to the public rather than to the boards.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a challenge to put an actual number just because there's a lot of variables that affect that. Typically, the way I look at it, if you are utilizing the Vanpool program and decide to have 4 riders, that's normally where you break even with how much fuel you're using on your personal vehicle. So not considering wear and tear, but that's kind of a break-even point. And then in terms of cost savings, any member that you have over that is going to save you additional money. So again, 4 is breaking even, but that's still significant savings because that's 20,000 less miles you're putting in your personal vehicle. But it's hard to put a number, and I totally understand that.
But even in any kind of advertising, it's like, you could save this amount of money.
Yes, ideally on advertising, we put an average of 6,000. That's what we see it on a yearly basis. It's a $6,000 savings.
Okay, so you could save $6,000 on, you got to tie that to make it real for somebody. Saving $6,000, how is that saving me $6,000? I don't know, it needs to be personalized somehow. That's my thoughts. I have a lot of marketing stuff coming through my head today, and I don't know why. So thank you.
Yes.
Well, I was going to add, that's why we ideally, we work with the employer. And that's because it's not just communication, but they give us analytics with some data to say, here's the address for the employee, here's an identifier, and here's, 250 employees. So normally we map it out and say, hey, you've got folks coming from Lakeland, there's 20 of them. That's the group we need to approach because we can have actual numbers that relate directly to that group to say, hey, here's what the Vanpool would cost you, here's what your current daily commute is, and see if we can encourage that group to participate in the program. And normally we get, about half of them to say, yes, that's great, let's do it, let's try this out. And that's enough to get a Vanpool on the road.
And I recognize it's difficult to pinpoint a number, but I think where Karen's going with this is the closer you can get to being able to say to a prospect, you're going to save $25 a week.
You could
$50 a week.
You could save,
Right.
Don't be absolute. You could save this amount of money.
Right.
If
At
you
least-
choose Vanpool.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I remember doing this years and years ago when I was still at the University of Minnesota as an administrator. And I had secretarial employees that lived in the far outlying areas. And I actually brought them in, I sat them down and I showed them, you're not making any money at all. You're not even breaking even.
Right.
Because this is how much money you make. And this is what it costs you to come into work every single day. Now, if you go into a Vanpool, each of your households is going to have this much more money. And I understand that many of you are working just for the insurance, but what can your family do with this much more money a month?
Right.
Right. I think that there's a possibility too of breaking this down in terms of cost. So a lot of the costs of owning a car are hidden. People don't necessarily realize that they're paying out as much as they actually are on a vehicle. And I think breaking it down on a daily basis, this is the cost of Vanpool on a daily basis. This is the cost of vehicle ownership on a daily basis. That can actually be something that personalizes it for folks. I was just thinking about this. We've had conversations about this in the past with the Commute with Enterprise team. And I think it makes sense to try to move to something that does personalize it for folks. But you're right. You know, I think a lot of times people think that they're, you know, well, it's just, I'm saving money by driving. When really it's the tipping point, like a family, for instance, that's thinking about a second car. Those are the kinds of decisions that I think Vanpool can really tip in favor of just keeping the one car and being in a Vanpool. I just throw that out there. I think all of us have been in that situation at some point or another.
Good.
I just want to make that point. Like if we had another media blast on a billboard, that would catch my eye. You could save this amount of money by joining a Vanpool. Just that little bit of information, because that's basically what we're all about, is how much money am I going to save? How much money is going to maybe get in? I have a follow-up question. What is the retention rate for Vanpool?
I'd have to check with my operations team. I just know the average lifespan of the actual Vanpool itself, averaging 6 years in our area. In terms of each participant, I'd have to confirm, just because what happens a lot of the time is if we lose a participant, normally that group has already identified another member to bring on to offset the cost. So I'll get those numbers to you.
Yeah, I think if it's available, it'd be of interest, interest to us. Great. Well, Linda and Ken, thank you very much. As you can tell from this meeting and previous meetings, there's a lot of interest in the Vanpool program on this committee. So we welcome you to come back and keep us apprised on how it's going and growing.
And we absolutely encourage you guys to, if you've identified an employer or you have a partnership with someone that you think could strongly benefit the program, please reach out to Ken and I, and we can do an analysis on that employer and that specific work site to see if this is a good fit for their folks. And we really appreciate you giving us the time today to show you some of the results.
I just want to give a shout out because I'm on the EMS Council for Pinellas County. Sunstar is in need of I don't know, transportation, but we're trying to replace our employees. Their fruition rate is just so high right now. Please reach out, let them know that it's available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, thank you.
Okay, we have our next item is our staff report on the communications report. Chris?
Got to find my unmute button, but you probably saw the attachment that's in the packet there, which really talked about the newsletters and the typical things we send out every month.
Yep.
Beyond that, I have really nothing to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I think I've talked a lot about our Vanpool program that really took up a lot of our time, as you can understand, over the last quarter of the year, and we feel pretty good about that. But if there's any other related communications questions, I'm happy to answer any of those.
Questions from the committee members that are left? Apparently your report covered it all. So we're in good shape.
Glad to hear it. Thank you.
Let me go back to our earlier discussion about things that we would like to see reflected in the minutes. In addition to reflecting those committee members who were not able to attend the meeting, I think I've asked in a previous meeting that we reflect the staff members who do attend, so we can have a record of who was actually present for our CAC meetings. I appreciate that. Is there any further business to come before the committee? Well, I thank you. I thank those of you who came in person, and Randy, we'll look forward to having you sitting up here with us next time around. Okay. When is the next TBARTA board meeting, Chris?
The next meeting is going to be a week from Friday. I think that is the 21st, and we are in Manatee County at the county center there.
Okay. With that information, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you.